Hello, and welcome. Welcome once again to the Secrets of the High Demand Coach podcast. And here with us today is the one and only Jon Ostenson. He's the CEO of FranBridge Consulting, an Inc. 5000 company, and he's in the top 0.1% franchise consultant. He is the best-selling author of his book, Non-Food Franchising. And Jon draws from his experience as a former Inc. 500 franchise president and multi-brand franchisee in helping his clients to select their franchise investments. Jon is a frequent contributor to franchising for publications such as Forbes, Inc., and Bloomberg, and he's here with us today. Love this phrase. Hoping you could add a little bit of color to it, Jon, but to kind of open up the show here, what is non-food franchising?
Yeah, no, appreciate you having me, Scott. And, when I say the F word, franchise, everyone associates it with fast food, right? And so, I wrote a book called Non-Food Franchising. And really what I've chosen to do is carve out half of the market. My humble belief is there are easier ways to make money, outside of food that require less CapEx investment on average, fewer employees, less operating hours, higher margins, less susceptible to consumer whims. And so it's industries like home and property services, health and wellness, kids, pets, seniors. Understandable cash flowing businesses is where we focus, and that's why I term non-food franchising.
So, as I was getting ready to kind of approach this episode and looking at where we could kind of explore some of your expertise, something jumped out almost immediately and just ran through everything that I read from you, and it's this idea of when we get into franchising, there's almost this idea that like you being the franchisee have to run the thing, right? It's this kind of a boots on the ground mindset. Is that true? If you buy a franchise, do you have to run it yourself? Do you have to be there day to day?
It can be true. So we work with over 600 different franchise companies that are looking to expand. And I would say about 75% of them allow for what we call an executive model. Some will term it semi-absentee or semi-passive. And the whole idea is you put a manager in place day one to run the business while you continue your W-2 job, or maybe you're an existing business owner and can't dedicate the time. I prefer to call that semi-involved because there is still involvement, right? If you got skin in the game, you were going to care about the performance. And, really what it comes down to, Scott, is having a strong operator in place and a strong franchisor on the sideline. If you've got someone who you've aligned interest with, they're on your team, that it has the initiative, that's going to go out there and hustle, then that franchisor can really carry a lot of the support water for them on a day-to-day basis, so they don't come to you with every little question. You're making the major decisions, you're leaning in, you're coaching, you're tracking performance, holding them accountable, but you're not having to get involved in the nitty-gritty. So again, it's a big if, but if you've got a strong operator and then you have a strong franchisor, it's very doable. And we've got countless case studies of clients of ours that go that path.
Yeah. So let's unpack that a little bit. And I love this sideline phraseology because I actually use it a lot with the founders I work with in helping them understand how their role is changing over time, right? You take kind of it could be a franchise, it could be a traditional approach. As you grow in leadership, your role, how much time you spend carrying the proverbial ball decreases and decreases. And it doesn't mean that you disappear completely, though. And that's a hard place for a lot of kind of visionary types. So, they're on to the next best thing, out of sight, out of mind. So when you talk about a strong, let's start with the franchisor. When you talk about a strong franchisor on the sidelines, how do you measure that strength? What does that look like?
Yeah, what I like to see, and oftentimes in markets like Atlanta, where we are both based, we work all over the country, but, good opportunities are moving fast in these markets. If it's a household name, it's probably sold out. So oftentimes we are working with emerging brands. I like to see on that leadership team of the company, a strong leadership team. And what I mean by that is they've got the industry experience, but they also have franchise experience from their backgrounds. Maybe they've imported that onto the team if need be, but someone that has been there, done that, supported successful franchisees. Obviously, the business has to have competitive advantages and a unique why behind it, strong financials, and then really other franchisees in the system that are going to help support as well. You kind of build this community or mastermind group, with good franchises. So for me, so much of it, and you would agree with this, I believe it comes down to the leadership team and having the right people in place that are there supporting you and supporting your operator.
Yeah. So let's talk about that operator, and we'll come back to the leadership team because I think it's really important. But what are we looking for in a strong operator? And I want to couch this a little bit with, oftentimes folks, when I see them looking for an operator, there's kind of two equal but opposite extremes, right? There's just the one that has been here the whole time and I'm comfortable with them. They're not super competent. They don't actually want that level of responsibility, but I can't imagine anyone else doing it. And on the other side, there's like the golden goose, right? It's like they have to be perfect in every way possible. How do you define a strong operator, and maybe even where do you find one?
Yeah, I think self-motivated, and you can find them in the least likely places. One time we hired an operator. There's a former accountant. He was a CPA for the past 5 years, but he was a sales guy in a CPA's body. He wanted to get out there. He wanted to go build, an empire. He wasn't quite financially ready to just yet, so he needed capital partners like ourselves to come behind him. But, we gave him a piece of equity. Of course, there were clawback provisions, all that, the nitty-gritty. But one thing that I think will be helpful, so we gave him a title. We made him president of, in this case, it was a driveway business, a driveway company. And titles are free, and oftentimes people rise to the level of the title. They're looking for that advancement in their career on their resume. They're looking to build something. They've got skin in the game. And so I'm a big fan of aligning interest around compensation. That may or may not include putting them on the cap table and giving them stock equity, but it may be bonus plans that simulate that, and then when you have exit one day, you get the benefit there. So one other little hack I've learned is giving someone 3 pay package options, one that's heavier on the base, and then others that are lighter on the base, more heavy on the incentive compensation, where the grand total that they can make is higher. Obviously, you hope people will choose those, but it gives them skin in the game in that ownership decision of which package they choose. So, one quick case study, a client of ours, Nathan, over in South Carolina. He's the largest franchisee of 2 Men in a Truck moving service, operates like 12 or 13 markets. I think they just acquired number 13, 40 million plus a year in revenue. He's been able to find, great people in his community, through his church, just, in other environments. They come work for him. But because every year he buys another franchise with us, he's created just this growth path for people within his organization to go take on additional responsibility. So you attract better people and you retain them when you have paths for growth within the organization.
Yeah. How does that change, and when does it change? So if you go from, let's say, one market with 2 Men in a Truck to 2 markets, is that a massive shift? Do you have to change the way that you run that? Or does it not change until maybe 3, 4, 5? Where does that start to shift into a different game?
Yeah, I'd say if it was an adjacent market, then probably not as much. It's just your natural growth trajectory. You're covering more ground, if you will. But if it is remote, then you've got to have a really strong person, in place that's kind of overseeing the business on a day-to-day basis. So I'd say it depends. I mean, most people are growing contiguously. In his case, he has had to expand, through other states. But when it's contiguous, then it's just, you always need a fractional person, right? You need 4.5 people, not quite 5 people yet. So you have to kind of splurge and expand that way. But now if it's contiguous, it's not as big of a challenge.
Right. That's super smart. Now, when it comes to leadership, there's kind of 2 worlds that leadership shows up. There's the kind of corporate side, right? Do you have a leadership team that's helping support you? And then depending on how much you grow, how many locations you have, there's also kind of a leadership structure that begins to develop inside of the franchisee's operations. Shifting focus to the kind of corporate leadership structure, what should somebody be looking for from them, particularly before they jump into doing business with them or partnering up?
Yeah, franchises are like any industry. There's good players and there are ones that aren't as strong that you wouldn't want to be affiliated with necessarily. And so, that's where we help our clients identify the strong ones out there across a number of different dimensions. But really, you're looking for not only that leadership team, because that's going to be your business partner, right? But also, what kind of franchisees are they attracting to the system? What are their backgrounds? How is that culture being built internally? Because again, you're going to be a part of that. You'll still put your thumbprints all over your own local business, but that national business should be one that you can really draft off of. And maybe they've got national accounts or other little benefits. You're paying a royalty stream back to the franchisor, and it's important to understand, what are you getting for that? Are these expenses that you would be paying anyway if you were just doing a traditional startup, or are there true value adds as on top of that? So we start at 30,000 feet with our clients. We'll look at the top 10 opportunities in their market that are available, and then we'll start to get really granular around some of these other details.
Right. And so shifting our focus then to the leadership structure that begins to emerge inside of your operations, what would you say, are there any kind of general rules? Are there any kind of patterns for when you should start developing a leadership team beyond you and the operator who's boots on the ground?
Yeah, I'd say as a rule of thumb, I don't know that there's a rule of thumb. I think oftentimes it happens more organically, and you quickly realize, I mean, business ownership takes work, right? It's not easy, or else everyone would be a business owner. So I think over time, just going through that day-to-day grind, and as you start to expand, and we always know the person that got you to this level may not be the one to get you to the next level, right? So, I'd say that's where, if you're running the business semi-passive and you've got a manager in place, that's where you can, if you stay close with them and you're getting feedback from the franchisor from those interactions, it gives you a better informed decision on how to start evolving that organization over time. There's so oftentimes I've just seen someone that you can promote within that ends up being the right person, that knows it all, that is willing to share their learnings with others and makes those around them better. So, titles are one thing, but oftentimes it is that, day-to-day servant leadership that causes people to rise in the ranks, and all of a sudden they're a better fit than the one with the title.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the challenges in the world is it kind of feels like you're getting pulled from both ends. There's the expense of operations and trying to run a profitable enterprise. Then there's the outflow to corporate. And I've seen founders who feel like they're kind of stuck in the middle, especially as they're growing really quickly, and they need additional leadership support, but don't always feel like they can afford it. How do you approach that? You talked about it brilliantly. Like, you always have a fractional piece, right? It's like, I need 4 and 2/3 of a person. How do you judge, like, when to bring somebody into that team, when to maybe pull them out of some of their daily responsibilities to provide more leadership?
Yeah, Jack Daly was a business coach of mine in the past. He's a sales guru, well-known, written a lot of books, and I'll never forget, Jack, a couple of Jack lines, if you don't have an assistant, you are one. And so I think, making sure that you're focused on what he would call your high payoff activities. And one thing that he always hammered home was your best salesperson may not be your best sales manager. So I think, again, even if you're running the business semi-passive, you've got to be involved enough to understand what's going on and have an ear on the ground, and what are people saying, what are customers saying, what's the franchisor saying, to know, how do you promote within and really elevate someone's responsibility, or keep them in a current place and let someone else elevate past them. And, you risk losing people right whenever someone leapfrogs someone else. But oftentimes there are creative ways to, get them playing in the right seat. And oftentimes they appreciate that. I mean, I've seen it over and over. Salespeople that get promoted, they say, wait a minute, my day-to-day responsibilities have changed. I don't enjoy this HR and management piece. I'd much rather be out there on the front lines working with the clients. So I'd say that's where the value add, that's where your high payoff activity as a owner leaning in, sensing that makes the most sense.
Yeah. And I want to reemphasize for folks that are listening, it's why, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's why you emphasized in the beginning that it is, it's not absentee ownership. It's not, you're not doing it from the press box or from like corporate headquarters, right? You're doing it from the sideline. It's such an important reminder, because if you don't have that both kind of relational, intuitive knowledge, and you don't know the numbers of your business, right? The kind of quantitative knowledge, you're going to miss these types of distinctions. Would you agree?
I would absolutely agree. And I will say there are 2 or 3 franchises out there that truly run an absentee model. I'm a franchisee of one of them down in Delray, Florida, and they run the business for me. The franchisor does. It's totally hands-off. But everyone else, I don't like the term absentee. I like it semi-involved, right? And so because you do need to have a pulse on what's going on, because no one's going to care like the guy with the skin in the game, right?
Yeah, so true. So, Jon, there's a question I ask all my guests, and I want to hear what you have to say. What would you say is the biggest secret that you wish wasn't a secret at all? What's that one thing you wish everybody watching or listening today knew?
Yeah, I don't know if it's a secret, but I don't think enough people do it, and that's the idea that activity breeds activity. It's getting off the couch. It's starting to move in a direction. I'll see this oftentimes with clients or just friends in the past, where they're analyzing option A versus option B, and they can't figure it out, and yet they're not taking steps in the direction of one of those 2 options. And in my career, I've seen it over and over again. When you start moving to option A or option B, option C comes out of left field. It's that whole idea that when you're in motion, good things happen.
Yeah, I love that. I've always used the analogy that you can't turn a ship that's still in harbor, right? It's if you want to be able to move You got to have some water moving past. So I love that. Activity breeds activity. It's fantastic. Now, you've got a book out on non-food franchising. Tell us a little bit about the book and where we can find a copy for ourselves.
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, we've sold thousands of copies. All the proceeds go to a great nonprofit that we support, Hope International, a great organization. But happy to share free copies as well, free digital downloads in different formats. If you come out to our website, FranBridgeConsulting.com, just share your email address and we'll reach out with links so you can download the book for free. But yeah, non-food franchising, it's been great. Most of our clients have read it by the time we get on the phone. And the goal is just to educate and open up people's eyes to this world of franchising and all these other industries outside of fast food.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's fantastic. Well, Jon, thank you so much for being on the show today. Really appreciate it. Again, want to just reiterate, head on over to FranBridge Consulting. His website, we'll put it in the show notes below. Get a copy of the book. You will not regret it. Jon, thanks for being here. It's an honor and privilege having you on the show today. And for those of you watching and listening, your time and attention mean the world to us. I hope you got as much out of this conversation as I know I did, and I cannot wait to see you next time. Take care.